Part 5. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Shang. Chapter 41. Having lived in this world for so many days, Yayu naturally doesn't know anything like he did at the beginning. Regarding some noteworthy existences in this labyrinth city Orario and the Familia, Yayu has a certain knowledge. Learn. For example, the most powerful Loki Familia, the Ganesha Familia who likes to do some unreliable things, and the Hephaestus Familia that Loki just mentioned. Hephaestus's family can be said to be the most unique family in Orario, and it is also a big family that everyone knows about. The Hephaestus Familia is the only familia that does not rely on adventurers to take risks to make money. There are not many powerful adventurers in the familia, but they are known to everyone in Orario. Because Hephaestus is the goddess of forging, all her members are skilled blacksmiths. Almost all adventurers in Orario are using weapons forged by Hephaestus's members. As for the divine weapons forged by Hephaestus, the main god of the Hephaestus Familia, they are even more coveted. A handy weapon can indeed improve an adventurer's strength by several levels, and you would not refuse such a thing. But if Hestia had to exchange her dignity for something like this, then it would be better not to have it. Hey, kid, wait for me, why are you so excited? Even if you want to find Hestia, do you know where she is, or do you want to go directly to Hephaestus? Are you going to make a scene in the store? Behind her, Loki was shouting and panting as he caught up. Listening to her words, Yayu stopped in his tracks. The other party was right. It was obviously impossible to go directly to the Hephaestus Familia's shop to cause trouble. The first step was to find where Hestia was. Take me. Well, I know, and don't speak to me in a commanding tone. After all, I am also a goddess. Respect, I need respect. Although Loki was jumping and talking like this, Yayu did not move at all. Seeing the indifferent look on the other party's face, Loki curled his lips in displeasure, but said nothing. She didn't know why she came to Yayu to tell him about Hestia. Perhaps it was because Hestia, her 1,000-year-old enemy, was so proud of asking her in such a low voice, right? When he became proud, he wanted to show off, and then it seemed that the only person he could show off to was Yayu, who allowed him to be the only one in Hestia's family. But after things got to this point, Loki already felt a little regretful. Looking at Yayu Leng's scary expression, she always felt that she had done something very inappropriate. When more and more shops related to weapons and armors were seen, and the figures of adventurers wearing heavy equipment became more and more conspicuous, Loki and Yayu came to a shop and stopped. Compared with the neighboring shops on the left and right, this weapons shop is 2 times larger. The bright red paint, reminiscent of fire, is still particularly eye-catching on this shop-lined avenue. A sign hanging on the heavy door had a strange sign written on it. It is a font similar to sacred writing that cannot be deciphered, only its meaning is known. Because it is the symbol representing the family of the world-famous blacksmiths. Well, this is it. Why don't you come with me? As Loki said this, Yayu looked at the shop. Separated by a piece of transparent glass, there are various swords on display that can even be seen as treasures by a layman. A double sword with crossed emerald green blades, a long-handled sword with an impressive attack range, and a thin sword decorated with gold. These outstandingly sharp blades were placed there, reflecting the light from the magic stone lamp device above, and were placed like brilliant treasures in a luxurious treasure chest decorated with diamond crystals. Although it is a weapon like a work of art, the cold blade not only has a sense of beauty, but also always reminds people of the true identity of these things in front of them. They are all sharp weapons for killing. As for the price tag placed very implicitly below, it is a series of zeros that make people dizzy just looking at it. This is the shop of the Hephaestus Familia. Here they only sell first-class weapons used by first-class adventurers. When Loki and Yayu stepped into the weapons store, there was a room on the inside. How long do you plan to stay like that? The helpless inquiry was only met with silence. In her own office room, the red-haired and red-eyed goddess Hephaestus couldn't help but make a sound of surprise and exhaustion. She was dressed in a familiar uniform and sitting at her desk. The object her voice pointed to was a round object kneeling on the floor with her head lowered as low as possible. No, it was the young goddess Hestia. Hephaestus Familia, Northwest Street Branch. A chaotic air flows through the office on the third floor of this large brand blacksmith shop. Don't look at me like this, I'm very busy, right? Even if you don't make any noise, just nesting there like a bug will make me lose motivation and reduce my work efficiency. Do you understand? Are you listening, Hestia? Well. Hephaestus sighed at the little relatives and friends who remained silent and maintained the same posture. All day long. This is how long Hestia bowed to Hephaestus. On the day of the feast of the gods, Hestia begged Hephaestus to make weapons for Yeu, but she refused. It is not that she wants to boast, the works of the superior blacksmiths belonging to the Hephaestus family enjoy the honor of the highest quality even among their peers. The price is prohibitive even for first-class adventurers or family members. She was sure that Hestia wouldn't have the money to buy her own family's products. Not to mention discounts for the sake of friends. For Hephaestus, the leader of the Familia, it was the biggest taboo to dump weapons made with the blood and sweat of the members at will, and she would never agree to it. Hephaestus told Hestia that if she wanted to place an order, just save some money before she came back. The implication was that she was asking her to figure out what she was worth, and rejected her mercilessly. However, things are not that simple. Hestia, whose request was rejected, continued to bow her head to Hephaestus after the banquet. No matter how hard she chased them away, Hestia somehow persisted in clinging to her, but it was Hephaestus who was stumped first. In that case, just let Hestia do whatever she wants until she is willing to give up. Hephaestus decided to ignore her. She thought that if Hestia was hungry or something else, she would retreat listlessly. So 2 days had passed since Ganesha's banquet. Hestia still didn't give up, and Hephaestus still didn't let go. At this juncture, Loki couldn't bear it anymore and agreed to let Reveria teach Yeu magic. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, BasedonanAnime. Chapter 42. To Loki, Hestia's request actually meant nothing. Even if she agreed, it was just a verbal agreement. For the Loki familia who are very lax in their management, if they want to make decisions on these matters, Reveria must agree to it. As for whether something would happen if Reveria and Yeu were together, Loki, who was very confident in his own children, believed that Reveria would not be captured by Yeu. Reveria knew much better than she did that it was absolutely forbidden to fall in love among different families. Normally, no one is allowed to set foot on the third floor, which is Hephaestus's office, but apparently the goddess Loki is quite proud and allowed the people in the store to successfully let her in. Just when Hephaestus was helpless because of Hestia's persistence in the office, the door to the room was pushed open from the outside. Who? Didn't I say no one is allowed to come up? Hephaestus said with a slight frown. If this scene was seen now, there would be some trouble. After all, as a goddess, she was kneeling in front of her without dignity like this. If this happened, it would not only be embarrassing for herself, but also for Hestia. But when she saw who walked in clearly, it was a bit beyond Hephaestus' expectations. Loki, why are you here again, and who is that boy? He originally had the idea of teasing Hestia, but Loki, who just couldn't stand it anymore not long ago, finally agreed to Hestia's request and left. I can agree to what Loki said without any worries, but I can't. Hephaestus thought helplessly, and then looked curiously at the man who walked in with Loki. Who is he? Why did you bring him in? On the other side, Hestia, who discovered Yeu, widened her eyes in surprise and stood up from the ground. Why did you bring Yeu here, Loki? I'm sorry, it still has something to do with some irresistible factors. Loki showed a helpless smile. She slightly regretted telling Yayu the news about Hestia. Why are you talking so much when you are chasing after him? You can just let this guy find him slowly. Loki murmured in his heart. Of course, if Yayu was allowed to search slowly by himself, it would most likely result in more serious consequences. Maybe Yayu, who couldn't find Hestia in the end, got mad and went to Hephaestus' shop to make a fuss. Yayu, this young man is Hestia, your dependent. Ah, yes, that's it, so I hope you can help him build a weapon. Yayu, this is Hephaestus, a very famous craftsman in Aurario. Just ask her. You will definitely be able to get a very powerful and handy weapon. As Hestia spoke, she came to Yayu's side and pulled his shoulders, speaking eagerly. She even planned to take Yayu with her to request Hephaestus. Why? Why do you do this? Hestia felt a stronger force in her palm, and Yayu pulled the girl into his arms and asked in a questioning tone. Hey. Why? Feeling that Yayu seemed angry, Hestia asked with some confusion. Are you Hephaestus? However, Yayu ignored Hestia and turned around to stare at the stern-looking goddess with long flame-like hair and an eye patch in front of him. Yes, I am Hephaestus. Hephaestus nodded lightly, and then curiously looked at the Hestia's family member in front of him, wondering what was so outstanding and attractive about this young man that made Hestia able to serve him. Get to this point. Apologize. Why? But just when Hephaestus was sizing up Yayu, the two cold words spit out by the other party made the goddess unable to react for a long time. What did you say? Sorry, don't you understand? Seeing Hephaestus standing there in a daze, Yayu raised his head and looked at her calmly. I asked you to apologize to Hestia. This time Hephaestus really heard clearly, but the goddess stood there with a depressed look on her face. What do you mean? Why do I have to apologize to Hestia instead? She's been so persistent here that I can't even work properly. But in the end, it's my fault and I have to apologize to her? Indeed, it was a bit excessive to make her kneel for so long without saying a word, but it wasn't me who forced her to do this. I made it very clear from the beginning that I would not help for free, so I told her not to waste her efforts in vain, right? Does she blame me for insisting on kneeling there and refusing to get up? Could it be that I have to persuade her earnestly not to kneel down, but to beg her to stand up? Now it seems, your familia does have a lot of personality, Hestia. Although she felt a little uncomfortable in her heart, Hephaestus didn't show it. She just looked at Yayu, and then stared at Hestia meaningfully. I'm sorry Hephaestus, Yayu, he's a little. Hestia wanted to say something, but Yayu held her tightly. That's enough, how far do you have to go before you give up? Do you think I will feel happy if you do this, Hestia? Hey, yeah, Yayu. Seeing Yayu's expression like this for the first time, Hestia shrank slightly, looking a little scared. Yayu, who had always looked calm and rarely showed expression fluctuations on his face, was really angry this time. It was an expression of sadness and anger for her misfortune, which made Hestia feel unspeakably uncomfortable. The girl couldn't help but lower her head. I don't want you to feel inferior to others, Hestia, even though you do seem useless and stupid among the gods, and you can't do anything well. When Yayu said this, Hestia blushed and lowered her head even further. But in my heart, you are unique, the most perfect goddess that no one can compare to. So don't belittle yourself, let alone give up your dignity for such inexplicable things. I don't need this kind of shabby weapon. I don't want it either. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, BasedonanAnime. Chapter 43. Originally, Hephaestus was still lamenting that Hestia had found a good family because of Yayu's sudden appearance, and she was slightly reflecting on her bad attitude. However, Yayu's next words made the goddess unhappy. Happy. You are right to feel sorry for Hestia, but why do you slander me? How dare you say that the weapons made by me, the god of craftsmen, are garbage? Whether it's the god realm or this lower realm, I'm the second best and no one dares to be the first, okay? You actually said that my weapons are junk weapons. For Hephaestus, the god of work, forging was her second life, and she would never allow anyone to slander her weapons in front of her. If you feel that there is something dissatisfying with the weapons she made, then please bring it up and explain the reasons, otherwise be prepared to bear the wrath of the goddess. Yayu's words were naturally angry, but Hestia, who was familiar with Hephaestus's character, was shocked. She knew that Yayu's angry words would definitely be taken seriously by this arrogant god of work. Yes, I'm sorry. Yayu may not know so many things. He just said angry words. Please don't take Hephaestus seriously. Humph, you dare to say that my weapons are rubbish. You are the first in history. Boy, what makes you so arrogant and confident? Although she was very angry, Hephaestus would not directly attack Yayu. The goddess casually took down a sharp long sword from the exhibition stand behind her and placed it across Yayu's neck. Do you know how to forge? Do you know what weapons are? What makes you dare to say such things? I don't understand what you're talking about, but, if a weapon is damaged when it can't even withstand this level of use, what is it if it's not trash? Yayu said so lightly, and then gently pressed his palm on the sword body. Hephaestus was slightly startled, and then the expression on the goddess's face changed. A chill spread from the weapon in her hand. In just a moment, the biting coldness made Hephaestus couldn't help but let go of her palm. The weapon that lost its restraints naturally fell at the speed of a natural fall, and then fell to the ground and turned into powder. Hephaestus was speechless for a long time. The goddess just looked at the weapons that fell to powder on the ground in a daze, as if she couldn't bear such a blow. As the god of craftsmen, what she knows best is the structure of matter. Only by mastering this can she create powerful weapons. But at that moment, the structure of the long sword in his hand was completely destroyed. No. It doesn't mean that it was destroyed. It should be said that the extremely terrifying low temperature in an instant directly changed the material structure of the weapon. But is this really possible? Hephaestus was confident that apart from absolute zero, it was impossible to say that the material structure of her weapons would be destroyed at low temperatures. But as for absolute zero, that's just a theoretical value. Even the ice and snow goddess Diane cannot create a low temperature like absolute zero. No matter how low the temperature is, it is just a low temperature environment for the possessed, but absolute zero means that everything in the environment loses the energy to continue operating. If the environment in that state really existed, it would undoubtedly be an existence more terrifying and indescribable than death. A power that even gods cannot control is controlled by a mortal? What a joke, Hephaestus would never believe such a thing. She preferred to believe that Yayu had used some means to destroy her weapon. How much does this cost? When the room fell into a strange silence, Hestia looked at the broken pieces on the ground and said something so stupidly that Yayu's feet softened and he almost fell to the ground. Even Hephaestus, who wanted to say something, was speechless for a while. Don't worry, I'm not so stingy. Hephaestus said this with a slightly embarrassed expression on her face. The current situation was that Yayu was the first to provoke, and then she retorted. As a result, the rebuttal was once again countered by the other party with facts, and she almost slapped her in the face. The level of support is back. What should I do next to ensure my reputation and at the same time severely combat this guy's arrogance? Looking at the long sword that was frozen to pieces on the ground, Hephaestus felt a little bad. Looking at the fate of this weapon, it seemed that it was meaningless whatever weapon he took out, unless. No matter how powerful adventurers are, they are just adventurers after all. They are just ordinary mortals, and the weapons they use are also mortal weapons. It is normal for mortal weapons to break and be damaged, but this is not the case for divine weapons. But whether to really take out the things made Hephaestus slightly hesitant. Of course, I'm not afraid of being destroyed by Yayu, but I just feel like I'm bullying others if I do this. Showing off the weapons used by gods in front of an adventurer. Hephaestus thought so, but after seeing Yayu's eyes, she gritted her teeth and took it out. The reason is very simple, because the provocative aura in Yayu's eyes is too strong, which makes Hephaestus unbearable. Since you want to see what a real magic weapon is, then I'll let you see it. What Hephaestus took out was not a luxurious weapon. Compared to the weapons displayed on the exhibition stand behind her, this thing even looked a little shabby. This is a dull hammer, but the origin of this hammer is not simple. It is the forging hammer that has accompanied Hephaestus on her forging journey. Hephaestus, who holds this hammer, is the true god of craftsmen. After Hephaestus took out this inconspicuous hammer, Yayu also frowned slightly, because he felt an indescribable and overwhelming power from this hammer. How about, do you see it clearly? This is the real magic weapon. Faced with it, do you still have anything to question? Hephaestus pointed the hammer in his hand at Yayu and said so arrogantly, but the latter just said nothing and then gently stretched out his hand towards the hammer in Hephaestus' hand. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, BasedonanAnime. Chapter 44. Seeing Yayu make such an action again, Hephaestus was honestly frightened. Her body subconsciously shrank back to avoid Yayu's outstretched palm. In response to Hephaestus's behavior, Yayu showed a half-smiling expression, which made Hephaestus on the other side a little annoyed. Why are you laughing? Isn't it funny? Hephaestus had to admit that she was indeed scared the moment Yayu stretched out her palm. She was afraid what if her hammer ended up with the same fate as the sword? But soon, she regretted it because it was really embarrassing. Just now, I vowed to let him see the real magic weapon, but as soon as I took it out, I started to get scared. Don't worry, I know this thing is very important to you, and I won't destroy it. What? Don't say it as if you can destroy it. This is a weapon used by real gods. It is completely different from the things you have seen. Although she felt a little embarrassed in her heart, Hephaestus still subconsciously refuted what Yayu said. Oh, if you are so confident, do you want to give it a try? Yayu said this in a funny way, while Hephaestus shook his head subconsciously. Although in the subconscious of this goddess, she absolutely did not believe that Yayu could destroy her forging hammer, she was still unwilling to take this risk. Just like Yayu said, this forging hammer is more than just a weapon for Hephaestus. It symbolizes too much, and it is too important to Hephaestus. Even if it is absolutely impossible that Hephaestus subconsciously thinks, Hephaestus is not willing to take the risk. Hey, okay, Yayu, don't be like this anymore. In fact, Hephaestus and I are very good friends. Hephaestus has been taking care of me for so many years and let me stay with her. She lived and ate for free for so long, and even tried to find a way to help me find a place to live when I left. I have really troubled her so much that even I am embarrassed to continue to do so. The emperor asked her for something. Hestia said this with a sheepish smile. I really appreciate your help over the years, Hephaestus. It was wrong of me to make such a willful request, but for this child, no matter what, it doesn't matter. Hestia said this, gently touching Yayu's head and showing a gentle smile. Although it was very difficult for the girl who was a head lower than Yayu to make such an action, the girl had to stand on her toes and work hard to raise her hands. Just when Yayu was about to say something, Hestia shook her head gently. Yayu, who fell into silence again, just stood there very cooperatively and motionless, letting Hestia caress his head gently like a mother. I know what you want to say, but before that, listen to me. I don't want to be like this anymore, unable to do anything but watch. As your goddess, I hope to be your strength. Even Loki, who wanted to see a joke, turned his head in embarrassment after hearing Hestia's words. Loki can understand her feelings for her family, because she is also such a goddess. The Loki familia was not so powerful at the beginning, but also grew up bit by bit. Loki watched the children struggle, worried about them, and watched each of them become powerful adventurers of LV6, pretending to be LV1 newcomers who knew nothing. My mood at that time was undoubtedly the same as Hestia's mood now. Hestia, you are such an idiot. Even if you want to be my strength, do you think I can accept the help and strength you get in exchange for this? The anger in his heart towards Hephaestus has dissipated, because of Hestia's words and because Yayu understands Hephaestus's position. She didn't owe Hestia anything, on the contrary, Hestia owed her a lot. Now Yayu feels more sorry for the little girl in his arms, for this goddess who is obviously aloof but clumsy like a little girl. I'm sorry, but, I really just want to help Yayu, even a little bit, so that I can be your strength. Hestia said with a faint smile, and immediately the girl put down her tiptoes, lowered her head and laid her little head on Yayu's chest, speaking softly. Okay, you two, even if you show affection, don't do it in front of us. This makes me feel very embarrassed, you know, as if I am a bad person. Hephaestus said helplessly. She put away her forging hammer and sat down along the table. I'm the one, it seems like I'm an irrelevant person. If there's nothing else for me, I'll leave first. Loki on the side spoke so weakly, and her silent words were indeed almost forgotten by Hestia and Hephaestus. Hestia also made a request to you, right Loki? But just when Loki was about to leave, Yayu suddenly called out to her. Ah, yes, that's right. Although it seems like I was just passing by, it was indeed Hestia who asked Reveria to teach you magic. Loki said with a shrug. That's good. Now I refuse this proposal. Hey, you kid. Loki was slightly startled by Yayu's words, and then his eyes that were always narrowed widened. We Hestia familia will not ask others to do anything, and we will only rely on our own strength to get what we want. Looking at Loki, whose eyes widened in surprise, Yayu said so confidently. Ha, interesting, interesting, do you want to fight for it yourself? I want to see how you can make Reveria yours through your own efforts. Loki smiled instead of angry, and then his eyes narrowed again. Things are really getting more and more interesting, so I hope you won't disappoint me, Hestia familia, Yayu. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, BasedonanAnime. Chapter 45. Loki left, and the other person's expression before leaving was a bit interesting. I don't know if she was angry, or if she was actually looking forward to something happening. Although Hestia wanted to say something, she finally endured it. In fact, it was a good thing that Yayu rejected Reveria's teaching. I was still sad that he had to be alone with that elf every day. It's okay now, no need to worry about Yayu being alone with that elf and then being fascinated. His efforts these days should have yielded some results. Yayu should be able to feel a maternal aura from his body, right? After Loki left, Hestia thought so, while Hephaestus, who was sitting behind the table on the other side, sighed helplessly. Really, what should I say about your character? Maintaining your pride is certainly a good thing, but sometimes if you are too proud, people around you will gradually start to alienate you. As for Loki, Hestia actually didn't humble herself in front of her at all. She did make a request, but Loki agreed without much thought. That's not why I turned down Loki. Hephaestus said this, but Yayu shook his head. Then why did you refuse? I also know something about you, and you confessed your love to Reveria of the Loki familia in public. This is obviously a good opportunity to get along with the person you like, so why did you refuse? I don't pursue the woman I like on my own, but rely on other women's requests to meet her. Don't you think this makes me seem incompetent as a man? Yeah, you said so matter-of-factly, leaving Hephaestus speechless for a moment. As for Hestia, who was still hiding in Yayu's arms, she showed a somewhat happy smile. It turns out that Yayu still regards me as a woman in his eyes. It seems that his efforts these days have really paid off. Yayu must have felt my strong maternal aura, right? In this case, there is still hope of defeating that elf. After all, I am the one who gets close to Yayu every day. No matter how important Reveria is in Yayu's heart, if she can't see her for a long time, the influence will gradually weaken. Yes, I support Yayu too. If you like it, you must work hard for it. Hestia spoke to Yayu so excitedly, full of hints, but I don't know if Yayu could understand it. Seeing Hestia's emotions that were almost overflowing, Hephaestus knew that there was no hypocrisy in the other person's intentions. Thinking of her initial guesses and conjectures, Hephaestus couldn't help but feel a little guilty. Immediately, the craftsman goddess slowly spoke. I changed my mind, Hestia, and I promised to help him make a weapon. Hestia's eyes widened and her head snapped up, and Hephaestus shrugged at her. Of course, this is not because of your request, but a transaction. Money must be paid. Hey, do you have to pay? How much does that cost? The specific price will not be known until I build the weapon. It depends on how many precious materials are used and how difficult the project is. Hephaestus said this and cleared her throat. Be mentally prepared. The cost will definitely be an astronomical figure for you, Hestia. No matter if it's 10 years or 100 years, you must pay it back to me anyway. Hephaestus said this, looked at Yayu who did not express his opinion, raised his eyebrows slightly and spoke in a provocative manner. In this case, you shouldn't refuse to, right? Yayu didn't speak, but Hestia held his sleeve. Knowing the meaning of the weapons made by Hephaestus, she did not want Yayu to lose his temper at this time. I was just wondering, whether the weapon you made is durable. Don't ask me for a large sum of money, only to have it break casually. Please be absolutely assured in terms of quality, because I will make this weapon myself. And the staff is different from the sword, not to mention that the sword was made by my family members. Then it's like what you said. I do need a handy staff. I agree to this deal. Although he wasn't really interested in using weapons, it was hard for Yayu to refute Hephaestus. After all, this was the kind intention of the goddess who wanted to find someone at the foot of the stairs because of something that happened not long ago. It would be a bit too much for me to refuse him outright. When Yayu was thinking this, Hephaestus turned around and walked towards the wall frame fixed on the wall. A few small hammers polished like new were displayed on a slender shelf. Although he just took out the hammer he forged in front of Yayu when he was a god, it is a pity that Hephaestus, who has lost her divine power and is just an ordinary person in the lower world, cannot use it. Arms. Hestia, don't be idle. Come and help. Just treat it as part of the debt. Hephaestus put this hammer, which had no extra decoration and focused on functionality, into the belt bag that she wore. Then she walked to the clear crystal box and opened the lock. Then, from among the several metal blocks in the stable sitting box, weapon materials, he chose the mithril that emits silver brilliance. As the metal with the best effect in transmitting magic power, it is perfect to fill the staff with mithril. I'm so lucky to be able to see Hephaestus forge it in person again. Don't be surprised. It's practical to help me work properly. Do you need my help? Looking at Hestia who was full of energy, Yayu was slightly stunned and then asked. Well, forget it. Just go back and wait for the news. You must know that the forging of equipment is not that easy to complete. To do this, you must try your best to make the best work. Hephaestus, who is still brooding about what happened at the beginning, said that he must create a weapon that leaves Yayu speechless after using it. So what exactly should be done? She looked at the various works she had forged so far and fell into deep thought. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, BasedonanAnime. Chapter 46. A staff tailor-made for you. Yayu walked out of Hephaestus' shop while muttering to himself. As if not wanting outsiders to see her forging process, Hephaestus politely invited Yayu out. But this is a weapon made for me, right? In the end, as the buyer and customer, I didn't even show it. To be honest, although Hephaestus is the god of craftsmen in the heavens, Yayu is still very doubtful about whether the other party can help him build a useful weapon. After all, his power is too overbearing. Except for the weapons used by real gods, I am afraid that ordinary weapons will still end up in the same shattering. The long sword that Hephaestus took out at that time was already an incredible weapon. It must be a masterpiece if it can be displayed in that place. It will definitely not be better than the works displayed in the window of that store. It's not much different, but it's a pity that the weapon was still easily turned into powder by Yayu. Just like what Hephaestus said, mortal weapons are just mortal weapons after all, and they cannot be compared with the weapons used by real gods. How can mortal weapons withstand the power of gods? But if you deliberately control your own power, but in order to use weapons, you limit your own strength, wouldn't it be worth the loss? For a mage, isn't the magic staff that is so handy that he can fully utilize his strength? On the contrary, using the staff will limit the output of one's own magic power, and then the staff will have no meaning at all. Yayu was also looking forward to it, hoping that Hephaestus could really create a weapon that could unleash her own power, and he had been looking forward to this for 2 whole days. Waking up alone as always, the days without Hestia were harder than Yayu imagined. With no intention of going to the dungeon, Yayu walked casually along the street, turned several corners with skillful movements, and came to West Street, where a familiar store appeared in front of him. Naturally, the wine shop is not open yet, but a few customers can be seen in the outdoor cafe in front. The cute orcish clerk with cat ears and tail was working, but he didn't see the familiar girl. Do you work in a store? While Yayu was thinking about whether to go and say hello, a call rang out. Hey, wait a minute, that black-haired head over there. It's a slightly rude name, but the voice is very cute and won't offend anyone. Yayu turned his head in the direction of the sound and saw that in front of the Plenty Hostess shop, a cat girl with cat ears and a thin tail waved her hand widely. Yayu had an impression of her. Like the elves he saw at that time, she was a colleague of 11ER's workplace. Guian, meow. I'm sorry for calling you suddenly, meow. Ah, no, do you have anything to ask me about? The cat girl bowed gently in front of Yayu, and Yayu also nodded in greeting. The clerk saluted as if she had been professionally trained and got to the point without saying a word. I have something annoying to ask of you, meow. Here, I'll give you this. The black-haired guy is 11ER's boyfriend, meow. So I want to ask you to leave this to that daredevil, meow. The thing she handed to Yayu was a purse for holding money, which had become common recently. It is a bag-shaped frog-mouth wallet with a bead buckle. A rare emblem is implicitly engraved on it, indicating that it is a product of a certain commercial family. It is a small and cute purple money bag. At first glance, it looks like something used by girls, but I gave it to 11ER, so what exactly is the situation? Where is 11ER, and what happened? Ania, your explanation is not sufficient. Mr. Yayu is also very troubled. This time, the elf shop assistant appeared. She walked over from the outdoor cafe on the side and came to the two of them. I have to say that this name with the suffix Mr. sounds really touching, much better than the black-haired head. No matter what, it's like remembering your name, right? Liu is really stupid, Naya. 11ER was too lazy to go to the festival without looking at the store but forgot to bring her wallet, so I hope you give her the wallet. It goes without saying that people know about this kind of thing, Naya. Isn't it, Naya, a black-haired head? That's what happened. I'm sorry for not explaining it clearly to you. Looks like this. 11ER went to see the festival. Yeah, you showed a somewhat funny expression. It seemed like he had learned about the monster festival not long ago. That's right, so can I ask you to help me? Ania and I, as well as other employees, have to prepare to open the store, and we have nothing to do. I know that you have to go to the dungeon next, and I feel a little sorry, but it doesn't matter to me. In fact, I just came back from the dungeon. Has this time already come back? Yeah, you shrugged, making the elf girl slightly stunned, but the latter quickly reacted. In that case, it shouldn't be a problem for you to trouble me, right? That's natural. It just so happens that I don't have anything to do. But is it really okay to just let the girl be lazy and go out to play? Yeah, you said something funny while putting Sierra's wallet into his pocket. It's a bit of a misnomer to say we're lazy. We live here thanks to good intentions, and our situation is different from 11ER's. The elf girl named Liu said this and explained. 11ER seems to be different from them who live and work in the store. They don't have to come to work every day. Going to the festival this time is also a holiday approved by the store owner. The cats wanted to see Meow. But my mother refused to do so. 11ER said she would buy gifts and saluted with a smile on her face before leaving. She actually left her wallet in the store. That's too bad, Meow. Sheer is just so confused, Meow. Ania, I don't think you are qualified to talk about her. The cat girl looked at Yayu and said with resentment, but was soon scolded by the elf girl. The east street leading to the arena should already be crowded. You can go there first. Just follow the crowd and you will reach the venue naturally. Sierra just went out, you can definitely catch up with Meow now. I see. Yayu nodded and stared at the urban center where skyscrapers stood and the direction of East Street extending far behind it. Monster Festival, what kind of event will it be? Anyway, there happened to be nothing to do, so I might as well go take a look. With this in mind, Yayu set off from the front of the tavern. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Shang. Chapter 47. The avenue was bustling with excitement and joy. It was almost 9 o'clock in the morning. At this time when many adventurers were still in the dungeon, the East Street here was crowded with ordinary people and bustling with activity. Countless vendors are lined up in the middle of the road or on the side, exuding a fragrant aroma or the sound of sizzling barbecue. The entire road was decorated with ribbons and beautiful flowers, making it a bit more gorgeous than usual. Above the heads of pedestrians on the road, there are flags of various colors threaded through strings fluttering in the wind. The design of the flag is divided into two types, the outline of a ferocious lion representing a monster, and the elephant head emblem of the Ganesha familia. The blushing orc child frequently pulled his mother's hand, and the roar from the crowd sounded particularly excited. The sunshine in the sky was as bright as celebrating this day. At this time, East Street was dyed in the color of a festival. The flow of people marching on the street leads to the huge arena facility located on the east side of the city. A pair of silver eyes looked down at the people who came to visit the Monster Festival. Cafe facing the avenue, second floor. In the store, where the wood grain interior creates a warm atmosphere, she sat alone at a window seat with a view of the road as far as the eye could see. In order to prevent her her fair skin, from being exposed to others, she wore a dark blue robe. However, it was impossible for just a piece of cloth to cover up her beauty. The best evidence is that even though she wore her hood down low, the eyes in the store were still focused on her. Whenever her slender fingers slid over the cup on the table and her smooth chin was slightly exposed from the hood, everyone around her was amazed. Many people even looked at her and lost track of time. Freya, the goddess of beauty who could charm everyone present without having to do anything, always kept her gaze outside the window and spent her time quietly. The crowds from the netherworld that flooded the entire road, lots of children. Humans, orcs, dwarves, elves. Among the crowds of people of all different races, adventurers can also be seen dotted among the citizens. Freya looked at them as if to confirm each face, and at this moment, she heard a squeak. Along with the scraping sound of the wooden floor, there was the smell of one or more people approaching. She stopped looking down the road and looked at the person she was waiting for. "Oh, have you been waiting for a long time?" "No, I just arrived." Freya smiled slightly under her hood at this godly friend who raised one hand to greet him easily. Unlike Hephaestus's bright and intense red hair, this person has light vermilion hair. She has her hair tied back that reminds her of dusk and wears an old shirt and pants, giving her a somewhat slovenly male impression. "You don't look very good. Have you encountered anything troublesome?" Loki, who usually had a squinting look on his face, had a rare expression of normalcy today. This scene that looked extremely normal to normal people looked a little abnormal on her face. "Don't mention it, I was looked down upon by a kid." Hearing Loki pull the chair over and speak without restraint, Freya smiled as if she didn't mind at all. The atmosphere between them was like old friends who knew each other well. "Oh, which family can make our goddess Loki so angry? I'm really curious. Who else could it be? Of course it would be the family members of that girl Hestia. Oh, is that the LV1 newcomer who confessed his love in front of everyone? Even you know about this?" "Ah, of course I know. After all, the big news about the Loki Familia and their epic love story with the adventurers of the Familia has already spread throughout Orario. Those guys really know how to talk." Loki muttered with some dissatisfaction. Although he only regarded such a thing as a joke, Loki still felt a little uncomfortable when the goddess in front of him said it. "That boy, I kindly asked Reveria to teach him magic, but he still didn't appreciate it. He also said that the woman he likes must be obtained by his own strength. Who does he think he is? My children don't. How could he get it so easily?" Loki complained so unhappily. Freya looked at her amusedly, like a loyal listener. "By the way, when will you introduce that child to me?" "What, do you still need an introduction? After all, this is the first time she has met me." Besides Loki, there was another person who came to Freya. Carrying the sword sheathed and standing to the side as if to protect Loki, she was a beautiful girl with golden eyes and blonde hair that even Freya, known as the goddess of beauty, couldn't help but squint. The girl who was originally concerned about what her god said could not help but turn her head in surprise when Freya mentioned her. "Well, she is my ace." "Is that enough?" "Ace, don't look at her like this. She is still a god. Just say hello." "Nice to meet you." "Swordswoman," Freya whispered this name deep in her lips and stared at the girl in front of her. Ace Wallenstein. The leading female swordswoman among the Loki Familia, which is a hot topic among the gods. Her reputation and feats have already surpassed Orario and spread all over the world, so she really needs no further explanation. That pitiful appearance should have nothing to do with the dangerous profession of adventurer. If an uninformed person met her, they would never imagine that she had trampled on the corpses of countless monsters. The human girl with an extraordinarily delicate face, heard Loki telling her, "You can sit down," and she sat down next to Loki obediently. How cute. And, well, now I understand why Loki is obsessed with this kid. The golden eyes met Freya's silver eyes. Ace still maintained an emotionless expression and bowed politely. Freya couldn't help but smile when she saw the girl's appearance that didn't match her nickname. "Can I ask why you brought Sword Lady here?" "Uh-huh. You don't understand this. It's a rare celebration. I'm going to have a good and enjoyable intimate date with Miss ES. Loki showed a lewd smile and shouted loudly. Hey, besides, she just came back from her expedition. If we leave her alone, this little princess will immediately go into the dungeon again. She will never rest for the rest of her life unless someone comes to relax her. Loki reached out and patted the girl next to her on the head. A seemed to admit that she was wrong, her eyes dropped slightly, and she did whatever she wanted. Seeing the warmth contained in those slender vermilion eyes, and thinking of Loki's wild and unruly behavior in heaven, Freya felt that she had really changed. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Shang. Chapter 48. Okay, enough nonsense. Can you explain why you asked me out? Well, I just thought it's been a while since we had a casual chat. He will lie. Seeing Freya sneering in the shadow of the hood, Loki also changed his playful attitude just now and boldly raised the corner of his mouth to smile. The atmosphere between the two until just now suddenly changed 180 degrees. Unluckily, the waiter in the store who happened to take the order was so frightened by the pressure created by the two gods, Shenjing's huge force, that his cheek muscles couldn't help but twitch, and he stood there as if he was bound by an iron chain. As for Isai, her expression did not change and she did not disturb the two gods. She just watched quietly from the side. I ask straight to the point. What good thing do you want to do? I don't know what you're talking about, Loki. Stop pretending to be stupid, idiot. After Freya gave the immobile waiter a gentle smile, his eyes widened, and then his face turned red as if he had a fever. Then he turned around and fled the scene at a violent speed. The others dispersed, and she turned her gaze back, only to see Loki's narrow eyes, as sharp and alert as those of a raptor. You've been too restless lately. You brazenly said you were not interested in the banquet, yet you went to attend it. Plus, judging from your tone just now, I knew you were trying to get information. What tricks are you trying to play this time? What's the trick? Don't say it so harshly. Stop being so verbose. Every time you act strangely, something bad will happen. Loki's words carry this meaning. Her scarlet eyes clearly expressed her meaning. If you dare to cause trouble for me, I won't be polite. The two exchanged glances. Freya smiled and faced Loki's look that could kill even a snake. The two gods emitted dangerous power that was invisible to the naked eye. When they discovered it, the store had been empty for a while, as if it had been chartered by Freya and others. As Isai watched, the silent exchanges between the two gods seemed to last forever. However, Loki gradually became tired and weak. She no longer maintained her previous attitude and said with certainty, "A man." The goddess didn't answer. Just smile under the hood. But Loki seemed to take her smile as confirmation. Loki let out a long sigh of annoyance. Sigh, that means you have your eye on a child from a familiar clan, right? Freya's amorous feelings, to put it bluntly, she's just wanton, which is a fact known to all the gods. As soon as he finds the person of the opposite sex he likes, they are all children from the lower world, he immediately launches an offensive and takes her as his own with her unparalleled beauty. I don't know how many people have been poisoned by her beauty, which can also be called demonic, and have become her captives. What Freya is targeting this time is probably other members of the familiar clan. She will go to the feast of the gods to find out the familiar clan to which the child belongs. Needless to say, taking action against a child who has made a contract with another god to take love with a knife will inevitably cause disputes. If the target of the provocation was a powerful familiar, Freya would definitely suffer a lot of losses and suffer a big loss. Therefore, she did not act recklessly, but instead ran around to collect information. This is Loki's guess. Freya did not deny what Loki said. I really can't stand you, this slut goddess. You are in heat all year round and you don't even look at your partner. Oh, that's not right to say that. I will also make a choice. When I hear you farting, I don't even think about who is playing all those idiot male gods. It's convenient to establish connections with them. They can be accommodating in many aspects. Loki made a click in his throat. Hearing her mercilessly scolding herself for being worthless, Freya slightly, really just slightly shrugged her thin shoulders. Loki seemed to have no more questions to ask. He leaned his whole body weight on the back of the chair and made a chirp sound. As if she had nothing to do, she put her hands behind her head and leaned back slightly. Freya also picked up the cold cup and tipped it to her lips, committing herself to the space where the question and answer session had ended. Next to them was a cloudless sky. The noise on the street pounded my eardrums. A gentle breeze blew in from the open window, gently caressing Freya's robe. So what? What kind of guy is the kid you're interested in this time? When did you find out? Tell me. Loki raised the corners of his mouth. Asking Freya to reveal at least this bit of information completely exposed God's unique nature of looking for fun. Her interested eyes told the other person, if you don't tell me, don't even think about leaving. You made me waste more energy. I have the right to listen. After hearing Loki asking her a far-fetched reason, Freya turned her face to the window on her left. Now there are many children walking on the street. She seemed to recall some scenes from the past, and the silver eyes deep in her hood looked into the distance. That child, maybe you are not unfamiliar with him. I should say he is very familiar to you. Hey, you are not interested in the children of my family, are you? Loki came out with a wary look on his face, while Freya chuckled and shook her head. That kid always seems to be quiet, but at critical moments he can show intoxicating courage. Freya said this, and the goddess's lips trembled. What fascinates me the most is his colors. The color was as white and flawless as frost, so it stole my gaze and fascinated me. The second half of the words was not spoken. The goddess paused for no reason and suddenly raised her voice too high, with a slight enthusiasm that no one could detect. I literally discovered him by accident, he just happened to fall into my radar. Freya recalled the scene at that time and talked about it. She looked down at the scenery outside the window, as if she wanted to relive her encounter with him. At that time, it was like this. In the hazy morning, the main street on the west side. The boy came here from the other end of the road. Yeah, like running across the field of view right now. Freya's movements stopped. The silver gaze was fixed on a figure. The direction he headed towards was the arena and the monster festival. As if walking with the crowd around him, the boy headed towards the huge circular facility. Freya stared at the retreating figure, and a bewitching smile slowly appeared on her face. Sorry, I'm in a hurry. Ah. Let's make an appointment next time. Leaving Loki in a daze, Freya stood up and left the table. She covered her body tightly with her robe and left the store. Only Loki and Ace remained. What happened to that guy? He suddenly stood up and left. Surprise appeared on Loki's face, and he stared at the stairs where Freya disappeared for a long time. At this time, Loki tilted his head. Right next to her, some distance away from the window, Ace was staring in the direction outside. Ace, what's wrong? What happened? No. It's nothing. Even though Ace continued to say this, she still looked outside. Coincidentally, her golden eyes were the same as the goddess's silver pupils, chasing the familiar black-haired figure. A person I am very familiar with. I always find this guy's description a bit concerning. He is someone I am very familiar with. Whose child is he? Loki on the side frowned and muttered, and then she and Ace also left the cafe. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, BasedonanAnime. Chapter 49. It's finally done. Come on, here's it for you. Even the god of work in the famed god realm had to put in a lot of effort to create a weapon that you would not look down upon. After all, divine power cannot be used in this lower realm, and some things are very inconvenient. Whoa whoa. Hestia sighed in emotion when she saw the sword case handed to her by Hephaestus, who was wearing work clothes. Even though there were two big dark circles under her eyes, her face was full of joy. Did you meet your request? Yeah, I'm so satisfied. How could there be any dissatisfaction? Hestia popped open the lid and looked at the contents. The thing Hephaestus built was not a staff. Hephaestus made such a decision after seeing Yayu's power and hearing Hestia's explanation. Magic is a tool for use. If you want your own power, then, the sword is undoubtedly the best choice. Lying in the box is a broad-blade two-handed knight's sword. The silver-white sword looks like a simple weapon at first glance, but it is actually the work of Hephaestus, of course Tia also contributed a little bit. Looking at Yayu's weapon, which took nearly a day to complete, Hestia's face showed an unprecedented expression of satisfaction. Ah, by the way, what name should I give this weapon? Hephaestus. How about letting me pick it up? Let me think about it, because it is the crystallization of my love with Yayu, so it is called how about the Sword of Love? No, it feels like the weapons have become rotten. But, well, there is no other adjective for this besides saying it is a weapon of God. Hestia's blade? I always feel embarrassed. After a while, I'll ask Yayu for his opinion. After all, this is a weapon given to him. Hestia, who was always smiling, put her hands on her head with a smile on her face. The long twin tails tied on both sides of her head swayed as if to express her good mood. I've said it before, you are not allowed to not pay back the money you owe. I know, I know. Hephaestus untied her hair and warned Hestia again. The overjoyed Hestia just nodded with a smile. When her best friend was sighing, she was already preparing to leave here without stopping. You are leaving? Well, sorry. Hestia couldn't seem to stay still for a second, so she quickly packed up and walked directly to the door. Hestia, take a break. She turned her back to the source of the sound and waved without looking back. Walking out of the small room next to the studio, Hestia left Hephaestus' shop. It's true, but I also suddenly want to take a look at the expression on that guy's face after seeing this weapon. Hephaestus muttered to herself and showed a confident smile. You'll be surprised, right? Yayu raised his eyebrows slightly. He began to feel a little regretful. The reason was that there were too many people here and the atmosphere was too lively. In this case, where can I find 11ER? Looking at the crowds of people in front of him, Yayu sighed helplessly and found a corner where there was no one to stop. Although he has worked hard to get used to it and overcome it, Yayu still has nothing to do about such a lively scene. Just when he was thinking about whether to give up looking for 11ER and go back first, a call rang out. Yayu. Yayu. Huh. When his name came to his ears, Yayu turned around and couldn't help but widen his eyes. Because Hestia actually appeared not far away, running towards him through the crowd. Hestia. Why are you here? Hey, don't say stupid things. Of course it's because I want to see you. The girl standing in front of me looked proud for some reason, puffing out her extra-large breasts and making this declaration. Well, actually I didn't see Yayu's people after I went back, so I came to the festival, and then we met. It must be that the bond between us is deeply attracting each other. Hestia said this with an intoxicated look on her face, as if she had completely entered her own world, leaving Yayu aside. Yayu, who showed a helpless smile, shook his head, and his eyes fell on the long wooden box that the girl carried behind her back. Is this thing a staff? Hey, it's not a magic staff. It will definitely scare you. Yayu still thought that Hephaestus had made a staff for him. Well, but it's not very convenient to take it out here. After all, there are so many people. Hestia looked around for a moment at the avenue bustling with activity due to the festival, then looked up at the sky as if to say wait a minute, as if in deep thought. Let's find a place where no one is around to see us later. The opportunity is so rare now, let's go on a date. Hestia said this and grabbed Yayu's palm, showing a sweet smile. Would you like to go on a date? Hestia's nerves jumped a little too much, so that Yayu hadn't reacted yet. Well, that's right. Look at how busy the streets are right now, how can we not go crazy? That said, but... Haha, let's go, Yayu. Without giving Yayu a chance to retort, Hestia smiled proudly, grabbed Yayu's hand with her small and tender fingers, and led him into the bustling crowd. The vitality of the vendors lining the avenue never diminishes. The most prominent items on sale are skewers that are convenient for eating on the go, as well as Monster Festival-related gadgets and accessories. There are even vendors displaying real weapons. Perhaps it should be said that it truly deserves to be the Labyrinth City Orario. Fireworks shot up in the distance, making a loud but refreshing sound in the blue sky. Well, it's not about this. In fact, I am currently being entrusted with work. Well, is that right? Yeah, so I'm looking for someone now. Okay, then let's go on a date and find someone at the same time. Being able to have fun and fulfill your mission at the same time is like killing two birds with one stone. Ah, old man, give me 2 of those crepes dash. As a result, I didn't listen to myself at all. Seeing Hestia acting on her own, Yayu looked troubled. Although it would be very bad not to complete the tasks entrusted by others, it was obviously impossible for Yayu to directly ignore the feelings of Hestia beside him. It seems, this is the first time I've seen her look so happy, so, let's have some fun with her. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, BasedonanAnime. Chapter 50. That scene was staged with huge cheers. The dust was flying, and a monster that was freed from the shackles of the chain roared and rushed forward straightly. The woman who was preparing to fight alone let her short hair fly in the wind and avoided the body collision of the huge 2-meter-tall wild boar monster fighting boar by just a hair. Overlapping layers, a loud volume that resounds through the sky. A vortex of hot air surrounded the auditorium, which could accommodate 50,000 people. An amphitheater located in the eastern part of the city. Under the watchful eye of a huge crowd of spectators, today's main event, the Monster Festival, kicked off. In the central field, the monsters captured that day unleashed their ferocity, and their 4 legs rushed towards a prey. Even the rocks can be easily smashed and the pigs are truly brave, but the beast tamer of the Ganesha Familia can easily avoid it and receive enthusiastic support from the surroundings. To an expert, this scene might look like a bullfight. The beauties in gorgeous costumes, holding whips and cloaks, fought back and forth with the violent monsters countless times. In this monster festival, her mission is not to defeat monsters, but to train. The sight of risking one's life to tame a life-threatening monster can arouse awe, respect, and excitement among citizens. Unpredictable situations occurred continuously, making their palms sweat countless times. The roar of the monster, the host's commentary amplified by the magic stone products, and the shouts of the audience. The enthusiasm at the venue continues to grow, with no upper limit. Here we go. Seeing the unprecedented grandeur at the venue, Ina murmured to herself. She was waiting outside the arena, feeling the sounds and vibrations coming from inside with her skin, and looked back at the building with her back. At present, guild staff such as Ina are assigned to various areas of the arena. The main purpose is to manage and guide the audience to enter the venue and provide support to the Ganesha family. The Monster Festival is not an event started by the gods on a whim. Although the organizer of the event was the Ganesha Familia who agreed to assist, the plan itself was ultimately proposed by the guild. Although I shouldn't have such thoughts, how could I even think of holding such an event? Holding a monster festival is the intention of the guild's top brass. As a grassroots member of the organization, Ina had no right to interrupt, but she always felt that it was unacceptable. Even though there is no urban-level danger, bringing monsters from the dungeon to the surface should not be an act worthy of encouragement. At least Ina would feel a little resistant. She believes that if she wants to manage the labyrinth city and further promote peace in the city, she should eliminate all possible dangers, no matter how big or small. Monster is a terrifying existence. They definitely don't want to use this celebration to emphasize their friendly relationship with monsters. Wandering into dangerous areas just for the sake of entertainment is putting the cart before the horse, yes, at least from the guild's point of view, Ina thinks so. And, bread and circuses. How jarring. Eh? Ina, did you say something? When her colleagues heard her talking to herself, Ina smiled bitterly and shook her head to express that it was nothing. Due to its urban nature, Orario has many families and many adventurers. It sounds nice, but in fact most of the adventurers are fools and outlaws. In fact, their brutality and rudeness often cause friction with ordinary citizens, causing citizens to be dissatisfied with public security. From the guild's point of view, since it hopes to efficiently recover the benefits of the magic stones produced in the dungeon, it naturally has to support the adventurers who go to explore the dungeon. Therefore, from an objective point of view, even if some people think that the Monster Festival is an outlet for citizens to turn a blind eye to urban operations, there is nothing they can do about it. Just like this event was slandered in the Tower of Babel 2 days ago, even Ina herself heard it. No matter what, I just hope nothing goes wrong. Whenever the Monster Festival is held, she always gets extremely nervous. He will become nervous until the end of the festival. Or is it that my ideas are too rigid? Looking at her friend and colleague next to her who said, I really want to go see her, Ina put her fingers on her forehead and couldn't help but think hard. Not here either. Maybe they have already entered the arena. A familiar figure entered Ina's field of vision. It was Yayu. He looked around the outer area of the arena, as if looking for someone. Beside him seemed to be the main god of the family. Ina briefly glanced at the staff who were sticking to their posts behind her, and judged that it would be okay to leave for a short while, so she walked towards the young adventurer in charge of her. Yayu. Hey, Miss Ina. It's you, what are you doing here, half-elf? Hestia, who was dissatisfied with the sudden appearance that disturbed her and Yayu's world, showed a wary expression, making Ina smile bitterly. Although she was a little helpless, Aegina still bowed humbly to Hestia, the main god. Goddess Hestia, have you forgotten? I am the adventurer consultant responsible for guiding Yayu. Ah, I remember, but it's not teaching time now. Hestia waved her hand impatiently, and Ina lowered her head again in fear. As for Yayu, he looked at Ina with a strange expression on his face. Yayu, who had obviously been threatened, was a little worried. Ina suddenly came over to tell Hestia about her affairs. Until now, Hestia still thought that Yayu had only been to the first 5 floors, but in fact, Yayu had been to the 10th floor countless times. Of course, Ina didn't know this either. All she knew was that Yayu went to the 9th floor privately. Why is Miss Ina here? Because the guild is also involved in the preparations for the celebration, I came to help clean up the environment. I am responsible for guiding the audience. Is Yayu also here to watch the event? No, I'm looking for someone, but it doesn't look like she's here. There will be a small admission fee to enter the arena. If 11ER doesn't bring money, she shouldn't be able to enter from outside, right? Looking for someone? Do you need help? That's not necessary. After all, there are so many people here, and Miss Ina also has a job, right? Yeah, you said this, and Ina raised her eyebrows slightly. This bastard was really unusually polite today. It must be because the Lord God is around. Thinking of Yayu's attitude when she usually lectured in the Adventurers Guild, Aina curled her lips slightly. Well, then I'll help you with good luck. I'll go to work first. As Ina said this, she bowed slightly and was about to leave, but Hestia, who was walking with Yayu, stared at Ina and refused to move. While Ina was puzzled, she spoke slowly. By the way, Miss Consultant. Yes, what's the matter? You probably didn't take advantage of your position to wink at Yayu. At first, Ina didn't understand what the other party said, and she was speechless. When she finally realized that Hestia, who was staring up at her, was asking seriously, the corner of her mouth twitched quietly. I think I have a distinction between public and private affairs. Well, I believe what you say. Ina's arm was patted twice by Hestia, who nodded solemnly. Then, she walked away with Yayu, who looked surprised. Thinking that she might have been warned, Ina sweated while looking at the backs of the two of them. With a slight headache, Aina returned to her colleagues. Really, what are those people doing? We'll complain later and send someone over quickly. There was a commotion among the staff. The atmosphere that was not there just now made Ina look surprised. Excuse me, what happened? Ah, I heard that a few of the staff waiting at the west gate seemed to have fainted. Huh. Ah, no, they are still conscious. It's just that those guys were sitting on the ground and couldn't get up as if their legs were weak. Hey, it was probably because they were too crazy drinking and playing yesterday. They seem to be unable to do anything, so I have to send someone to replace the shift. The male orc employee put his hand on the back of his head helplessly. After hearing what he said, Aina felt inexplicably uneasy. A nasty feeling of tension ran up his spine. Am I just too neurotic? Listening to the mixed cheers and screams of the audience, she looked up at the huge arena standing in front of her. It was like a monster howling from deep underground, clinging to Ina's eardrum.